frankly, in the 27 plus years I've been with OLA, I have never seen this before. I will say we have had suspicions periodically, but we have never been able to prove it, to document it, and we did in this case, and it's very troubling. I will add that it wasn't just one individual that created the documents or backdated the documents. There were several BHA staff that we could identify who had done this, and it was across the grant oversight process.
Today, we are hearing a performance evaluation audit of the Department of Human Services, the Behavioral Health Administration grants. Auditor Randall.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Judy Randall, Legislative Auditor. I want to say thank you to all of you for holding this hearing, and Happy New Year. I wanted to just take a couple minutes before we dive into the findings and recommendations of this audit to draw your attention to the letter at the front of the report. This is typically a letter that is honestly pretty boilerplate language for us that says, kind of the very high level of what the audit is about. However, for this audit, we added the paragraph that you'll see at the end of the letter. And I do want to just read a little bit out loud and then talk about the implications of it. We noted that during the course of our audit, we identified a number of documents that the Behavioral Health Administration either backdated or created after our audit began in response to our requests for information. We go on to say what the generally accepted government auditing standards are, which are to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence to provide a reasonable basis for supporting our findings and conclusions. And then we also state that the standards state that evidence is not sufficient or appropriate when using the evidence carries an unacceptably high risk that it could lead auditors to reach an incorrect or improper conclusion. Because we identified a number of different documents that, again, had been created in response to our request for documentation, or that had actually been created and then backdated, we do have some questions about the validity of the documentation we were provided. Nevertheless, we, of course, move forward, and we do have a lot of confidence, at least as a floor, in the findings and recommendations that we present in this report. But I do want to talk about what a serious issue this is and how it is, frankly, unacceptable for the agencies we audit to do this type of activity. And it's a problem for a number of reasons. One, by creating or backdating information, well, first, it just interferes with OLA's ability to do its work, which you all have directed us to do. Secondly, as I kind of just noted, it undermines the integrity of the audit itself, and it hampers our ability to draw full conclusions that we could if we had full confidence in the information. And then finally, it actually undermines the agency's ability to have a clear insight into how it's operating. And at the end of the day, that's really what these audits are about, is helping an agency understand its strengths, its weaknesses, and helping identify opportunities for improvement. Without knowing the true extent of the gaps in oversight, without having the accurate documentation, BHA and DHS is not able to make the improvements that it might need to help mitigate the risks and to minimize the existing vulnerabilities. So I wanted to draw the Commission's attention to this because, frankly, in the 27 plus years I've been with OLA, I have never seen this before. I will say we have had suspicions periodically, but we have never been able to prove it, to document it, and we did in this case, and it's very troubling. I will add that it wasn't just one individual that created the documents or backdated the documents. There were several BHA staff that we could identify who had done this, and it was across the grant oversight process. So, we do believe it was a systemic effort. I will say that OLA leadership had a very constructive meeting with the commissioner and DHS's chief compliance officer. I think they took this very seriously, just as seriously as we do. And they can talk more when the commissioner comes up about how they are addressing it. But I think it's really important because at the end of the day, what it does is it impedes your ability to do oversight. Ultimately, our audits are to provide information to you so that you can provide the oversight over the agencies. And with this type of information that isn't as reliable, it impedes your ability. So I wanted to draw attention to that. Thank you for giving me a couple moments at the beginning of this hearing, Madam Chair. And with that, I'd like to now turn to Ms. Stone and Ms. Lyson, who will now deliver the results of our audit.